Today we're going to talk about a $0 method to keep your chicken coop warm throughout the entire winter. This is going to be of no cost to you, but it is going to take some time and something that you're going to need to prepare for. I'm Danielle of the Split Arrow Farm, and welcome to our channel where we bring you new content every week about how to start a homestead and live a more self-sustainable lifestyle. And today we're going to talk about heating our chicken coop for free. Yes, $0. Now, there are so many different things you can do out there to keep your chickens warm throughout the winter, especially when temperatures start to drop. We've actually reviewed a really great brooder. If this isn't going to be an option for you, I definitely suggest checking that out, and I'll link that down below. But if you are looking to have a cheaper, free version of heating your chicken coop, then you're going to want to stay throughout this whole video. This method is called the layering method, or others will call it the deep composting method. And basically what you're going to be doing is creating compost in your chicken coop. So this is going to be something that you're going to want to start early on in the year, probably around the spring, and then throughout the year you're just going to add into it. We're going to talk a little bit about how to actually create this and the do's and don'ts, but we've seen that this system has worked really well. The temperatures are dropping around below 32, below freezing in Fahrenheit, and the chickens are staying still really warm, and we've had really great success this year with that method. This is the first year that we've done it, but then again, it's really great, and it's going to be something that is really easy for you to do. It's going to cut down on a lot of your time and costs in the long run. So let's get in and start really talking about this method. Before I get into the actual heating method, let's talk about composting, because this is essentially composting, but your chickens are helping you manage the process. So within composting, there are essentially three phases. The first phase is going to be a moderate warming phase, and this is going to last a few days. This is when the compost is really just getting started, and it's going to be a little bit warm. The second phase is going to be a high temperature phase, and this is when a lot of the action is going on, and this is going to be a few days to a few months in length, and that's why you really want to start this in the kind of like early springtime. Start this method so that it really has time to start warming up. And you can tell when I go inside of our barn that it is a much warmer temperature in there, because the ground is actually heating it up as it's running through its compost system. The third phase is going to be the cooling phase, and this is when you've essentially had a lot of your dirt created and now it's just cooling off, and this is when we can start moving our compost into a garden or into a different area of our farm to repurpose that soil and give it a brand new life. What's really great about this process is the chickens are helping you for it, and it is turning any of those solids into reusable aspects that you can use in your garden then in the spring. So you're really prepping it, and they're helping speed up the process of the compost as well. I'm sure if you guys are farming, homesteading, gardening, you know how long composting can take, and there are different ways that you can speed it up with worms or vermicomposting, but this is also a really great method as well. There are really four essential components of when doing the layering method. The first one is you're going to need a carbon base. So you're going to see this in all different types of composting, but you need to make sure that you have those carbon points within your compost. It's going to be really essential when you're starting this off that you have things like pine shavings, and we like to have around 4 to 6 inches of pine shavings to really make that carbon base. And once that starts to actually start to compost, then we can add on things like leaves, grass clippings, or anything of the likes of that brown carbon base so that we can add into it as it goes on. But it's going to be really key that we start off with a clean pine shaving type base to get that going. Make sure that the heat is starting to kill any bacteria or fermentation that could start in there, and we're creating a healthier environment for our chickens to live in while also creating compost. The second essential item is going to be oxygen. So whenever you're creating your own compost, you want to make sure that you're turning it or you're allowing oxygen to go through it. A lot of times you'll see that there are composting machines where you kind of crank the sides, and this is basically what you could do with your own type of pitchfork, or you have the accessibility of chickens scratching at the compost, which is going to cut down on your time of aerating the compost, which is probably the best part, because the less time you have to be dealing with it, the more time you can focus on other essential items that need to be done at your homestead. Now, you are going to find that the chickens probably aren't going to scratch everything, so if you can get in there and really clean up areas where there's a lot of moisture, anywhere around the watering areas or areas that maybe they aren't going into as much, I would go in there and make sure that you're aerating that section so that the whole effect of the composting is taking place everywhere within the coop and the surrounding area as well. The third essential item is going to be having proper ventilation. So out here we have the composting method going on down below here, and obviously there's a lot of ventilation going in here, but we also have it within our barn as well. And the way that we have ventilation happening in here is we have some of our barn doors open throughout the day so that air can flow in throughout the barn and really ventilate the area. And you want to make sure that you don't have too big of drafts so that the chickens are getting really cold, especially on their roosting areas at night. You want to make sure that you're creating a warm, comfy environment for them. So we definitely, depending on the day, if it's not too crazy windy outside or too cold during the winter, we'll open up and really let that come through. Otherwise, we do have windows and just open airs throughout so that air can definitely come in and ventilate the area, and any of those bad gases can leave your coop and create a safe, happy environment. The fourth item that you're going to want to make sure to have is the right moisture balance. Now, the droppings of your chickens are going to be around 85% of moisture, so if anything, you're going to probably be more concerned about it being too wet than too dry. And the points that you're going to want to focus on are probably by the watering sources, making sure that you're really putting in enough dry brown compost in those areas and you're really aerating that area is going to make sure that you have the right moisture components. Otherwise, probably just going in every once in a while and making sure that you're cleaning up areas that the chickens aren't scratching at is going to be the main differentiator on the success of this method. We are now inside of our chicken coop section, and we're going to talk a little bit about the do's and the don'ts of this method. And there are some chatty ladies going on over there, so sorry about that. First, let's tackle the do's. So you do want to make sure that you are starting this in the late winter or early spring, because this is going to take a really long amount of time to make sure that you are getting the right heat and temperature of the composting. So like I said before, the high heat temperatures are going to be lasting anywhere for a couple of months, similar to any of your normal type of composting, and it's going to be essential that you really build that up so that it is warmest during the coldest seasons. So if you start in the spring, then by the fall it should be warm enough for the winter months. The next key thing that you do want to make sure to do is start off with a layer of 4 to 6 inches of a clean kind of pine shavings base, and this is going to make sure that you can really get that composting started, and then you can start putting on some other type of carbons on top of that, like leaves, grass shavings. We will put any of our rabbit cages, we'll clean in the outside section of it so that there's a lot more aeration, but then they can kind of also scratch at that. We'll put any of our foods, so if we're cutting up broccoli and we have broccoli ends, or we have some stale bread, we'll throw that into the outdoor section for our chickens in that gated in area and let them kind of scratch and pick at that as well. One, they love these little goodies throughout the day. It helps add some variety to their diet, and it's gonna really make sure that there's a nice composting section outside. We don't necessarily put it inside. I've heard that some people do, but we like to really cut down a little bit on that indoors, and we'll put more of just our carbon bases, put mulch, pine shavings, leaves inside, as well as any of the droppings. Now, another thing is, These are very chai ladies. Another do is going to be when you do clean out the compost in the late winter or spring, so when the temperatures start to get warmer, you can clean this out. It's going to be a nice dirt that you can actually use in your gardens. And when you do this, make sure that you do leave a base on the bottom. And what's really great about this is it's going to act kind of like the starter that you have for sourdough bread. You have that and it starts it off for the rest of the season. The composting actions are already going to be started and going, and it's going to help keep those live bacteria moving throughout all of your new compost that you put in there. So just make sure that you're not completely clearing out the area in the spring. One tip that I do have is when you are building out your chicken coop, make sure that you create a high lip. You can see right here, this is about a 6-inch piece of wood lip, and this is going to make sure that all of that compost stays in the chicken coop and doesn't fall out every single time you open the door. Even here, we're getting a little bit high. I need to make sure to kind of clean this area up, move it around in there, but this is going to really help you in the long run. So fun tip, add a lip. Our last two do's are going to be, one, making sure that when you do get to around 12 inches that you are cleaning out some of that compost so that it isn't a huge amount in there. Again, making sure that you are leaving a base. And the second do is to make sure that you are aerating that compost. The chickens are going to do most of this work for you, but I do definitely suggest going in, especially around the waterings or underneath areas that they don't really go to too much, maybe underneath their roosting area, and really just aerating that area a little bit. To finish off here, let's talk about some of the don'ts in this method. First off, don't start off with any leaves, grass clippings, or straw when you first start off this layering method. You really want to start with something like pine shavings that are going to be able to soak in a lot of the moisture and start this up, and make sure that you have a clean environment that you are running this system in, and there isn't really bad bacteria that are going to be starting here, because this can get your chickens very sick. And if it is too wet on the ground, your chickens can get bumblefoot, and you really don't want that to happen because this can really lead to some bad things. Another don't is going to be, if any of your chickens do get sick, you're going to want to make sure to clean out all of that composting within there, because there is going to be a lot of fecal matters in there, and you really don't want any of the other chickens to get anything that that chicken did have. So you are going to need to clean out the entire coop at this time. Another don't is you don't want the smell of ammonia. If you do have the smell of ammonia coming in from the chicken coop, it means that you aren't following some of the do's that we talked about earlier, and this is going to be a sign that your method is most likely not working. So you're going to want to kind of look back, see what you can do to improve the method, and potentially maybe start over. This is probably one of my favorite don'ts, but you don't want to be cleaning this out regularly. You want this to stack on top of each other. You can be aerating it more regularly, but do not be cleaning it out. And even in the spring or fall, do not be cleaning it out entirely. Make sure that you do have that thin layer there as well. If you're like us, then anything that we can do at our farm to cut down on costs and cut down on time used on doing things that we don't really like cleaning out a chicken coop, then this is going to be a great method for you. It's going to keep your chickens warm, it's going to be a low-cost solution, and it's going to help you compost faster so that you can focus on your garden, which I know I love and we're really excited about building up in the next year. If you like this video, then please make sure to like and subscribe to stay a part of our journey. Otherwise, we'll see you guys again next time. Bye.